Hey everybody, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com and the Kyle and Nick on Film YouTube channel, which you're currently watching. It's Saturday Scares with Kyle, and today we are talking another classic 1950s B-movie with Creature with the Atom Brain. This film actually was considered a B picture, directed by Edward L. Kahn, who had also done things like It, The Terror from Beyond Space, as well as another zombie film called Zombies of Mora Tau. And it's kind of an interesting film in some ways because it follows an American gangster, Frank Buchanan, who forces a German scientist to create zombies by resurrecting corpses with atomic radiation because he wants to exact some revenge on his enemies. And so in a lot of ways, this film is kind of that perfect middle line between the voodoo zombies that we would see in things like White Zombie and those kinds of mind-controlled creatures, mind-controlled humans in some ways, in the translation to being the George A. Romero Walking Dead, Living Dead creatures of the night that would attack people, the undead, if you will, zombies. This is kind of in the middle because they are undead people that are being resurrected, but they're also being mind controlled by this Nazi scientist. So you've got that perfect kind of symbionce here. Definitely a movie in the translation of what a zombie really is. And we would see that further on in films like Zombies of Mora Tau, as well as further on again as we get closer and closer to George A. Romero's 1968 classic film. So we're kind of in that transitional period with it. And what's interesting about Creature with the Atom Brain is that it's commonly seen as that B-movie feature. It was released in a double feature with, I believe, It, The Terror from Beyond Space, another Kahn film. Oh no, I'm sorry. It Came from Beneath the Sea. Yes, that was the other film was released with by Columbia. But you've got here, Kahn, who is known for doing a number of those kinds of films. He later would do a film called Invisible Invaders, which is in a lot of ways very similar to what this film is, but with aliens. And then it was written by Kurt Schoedmack, who one of my favorite writers from the time period. He wrote the screenplay for The Wolfman, which is one of my it's always in contention for my two favorite Universal Monsters films. That and Creature, The Creature from the Black Lagoon. So, and it's interesting there because we have, Schoedmack who wrote that. He also wrote things like The Invisible Man Returns, which is a highly underrated Invisible Man film. He did some really great screenplays and doesn't always get that kind of credit just because he is so much in the past. Horror aficionados from the time period will know his name, but I don't think common, the screenplays of the time were not credited in such a way where it was a big deal that you were Kurt Schoedmack. So, great screenplay with it. We also have Richard Denning in the lead role, which he actually was in Creature from the Black Lagoon. So this is another perfect middle point for my love for Wolfman and my love for Creature from the Black Lagoon, right in one kind of film. He stars in the film as Chet Walker. His wife is Joyce, played by Angela Stevens. What we have here is this middle ground movie that seems to be making a lot of adjustments. It was the first movie to ever use squibs to mimic gunfire, and it does have some periods of intriguing story developments, intriguing plot furtherations, on that kind of a B-movie budget. One of the things that notates a lot of B-movies of the time was their director's ability to shoot quickly, shoot with not a lot of money, and so you'll see a lot of this film plays out in large scenes where we have less time for the camera to reposition, a lot of open spaces with people pacing, talking, moving around, and exploring the space in a lot of ways. So you'll see less cuts because it was cheaper and faster to produce. And that's what you have here as well. Now, the movie is definitely meandering, especially in its second act, but for a 69-minute film, it actually cruises pretty well, all things considered, into a final, I guess you could say, battle sequence, action set piece involving a number of the zombies facing off against the police, and they can't be taken down. And it's a pretty exciting little thing, but it's kind of silly, too, because it's just this open space on what seems like a lawn where they're kind of fighting it out between the zombies that don't die and the police that just keep shooting into them. It's one of those movies I don't think if you're looking for realism that you're going to find much there, but it's hard to get away from the idea of a gangster picture mixed with a Nazi experiment film from the time. This is about 10 years after the end of World War II, so we're still in that time period where the wounds are still extremely deep from that conflict. So to have a Nazi scientist teamed up with an evil gangster villain trying to get exacting revenge and, kind of a local doctor who's trying to uncover all the pieces of it is very indicative of the 1950s. And 1950s were a time period where there was a lot of transitional time before it in the 40s and later on in the 60s as tastes in the horror realm evolved. Most of the 50s had to do with experiments gone awry, large-scale mutant monsters, a lot of science gone bad. And this movie fits in there while again evoking the 30s, evoking White Zombie, also evoking things that we'd come to love with the zombies of George A. Romero. So again, it's constantly in flux, but like this is a movie that fits the 50s while also being a transitionary film in a lot of ways, being one that is able to embrace, producer Sam Katzman, who made a number of these low budget pictures. He actually has a box set. I saw this film in called Cold War Creatures, that has a number of Sam Katzman produced films, including this one. And you really get a sense for how he works with, we're going to go cheap, we're going to go fast. Kind of Val Lewton-esque of the time is that we can make a film that really fits within the budget and the time frame that we're working with, but we're going to elevate as many of those Cold War fascinations and fears into the film. And so there's kind of a Leave It to Beaver-ness of the whole thing, where you've got the charming idyllic society, but under the surface there are horrifying things happening. And I think that's where this film truly wins. It's a movie that I do slightly recommend if you're looking for that B-horror movie 50s vibe. It actually works pretty well. I was surprised with this one. If you've seen it, though, make sure to let me know down in the comment section what you thought about Creature with the Atom Brain. While you're down there, please make sure to like and subscribe. There are 2 free things you can do that help to support the channel immensely, and you never miss new episodes of the show as they drop. You can also find GoatFilmReviews.com for my written reviews. You can follow me at Almighty Goatman on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Threads. Make sure to tune in for us next week, because we will be covering another Jose Ramon Larraz film. We previously covered Whirlpool, and we're going back to the Larraz well with his seminal classic Vampires. That's with a Y. Join us for Jose Larraz's Vampires next time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.